Diplomat Hana Shin stood before the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds as the first Galactic Cooperative Council convened in the rebuilt halls of Coronax Prime. The former imperial capital had been transformed from a war-torn ruin into something magnificent, a city that combined the architectural styles of hundreds of species into a harmonious whole. "Friends," she began, addressing beings from every corner of the galaxy. "1 year ago, most of you had never heard of the Galactic Cooperative. Today, you represent civilizations that span from the galactic core to the outer rim, united not by conquest, but by choice." In the audience, Admiral Minji Park sat with the other military leaders who had made this moment possible. She wore the uniform of the Cooperative Defense Force, which now included officers from dozens of species. Beside her sat former war chief, Throtak, who had become one of the most effective advocates for peaceful conflict resolution. "It has been a remarkable transformation," Park reflected to her aide. "A year ago, Throtak was trying to enslave entire species. Now he teaches other former warriors how to build instead of destroy." Dr. Woojin Lee monitored the proceedings from the medical bay of the new Unity station orbiting above the planet. His teams had spent the past year developing medical treatments that worked for all known species, sharing advances that had previously been kept secret by different civilizations. "Doctor," his assistant reported, "we're receiving the final health statistics from across cooperative space. Infant mortality is down 78%, average lifespan is up 34%, and we've eliminated 17 diseases that were previously considered incurable." Lee smiled as he looked at the reports. But the numbers only told part of the story. More important was the fact that species that had been isolated for centuries were now sharing their medical knowledge freely, creating advances that no single civilization could have achieved alone. Captain Jiho Kim, now promoted to admiral, commanded one of the integrated fleets that protected cooperative space. His ship, still called the Aegis Dawn, but now expanded far beyond its original specifications, carried a crew that included beings from 23 different species. "Admiral," reported his new first officer, a former Vorthak named Kresh, "patrol reports from Sector 7 show all systems stable. The former pirate bases have been converted to emergency supply stations." Kim nodded. It still amazed him how quickly former enemies had become not just allies but friends. Kresh had once served on ships that attacked human vessels. Now he was one of Kim's most trusted officers. Engineer Do-Yun Kang put the finishing touches on his greatest project yet, the restoration of the galactic communication network that had been destroyed during the Empire's collapse. But this new network was far more advanced than anything the Empire had possessed. "Final test complete," he announced to the Council. "The new network allows instant communication between any 2 points in the galaxy. More importantly, it's completely open and transparent. No government can control or censor it." This was perhaps humanity's most revolutionary contribution to galactic civilization. For the first time in history, every being in the galaxy could communicate directly with every other being, regardless of distance or political boundaries. Admiral Shungjin Oh addressed the assembled representatives about the military situation. "In the past year, we have fought only 3 major battles, and all of them were defensive actions to protect worlds requesting to join the cooperative. Our enemies are not other species, but the forces of chaos and oppression wherever we find them. The most recent battle had been against the Hive Collective, which had finally emerged from isolation to launch attacks against former imperial worlds. But even that conflict had ended not with the collective's destruction, but with their integration into the cooperative once they understood what it offered." Dr. Nariyu presented her cultural integration report to the Council. "We now have over 10,000 mixed communities where different species live and work together as equals. Children are growing up with friends from dozens of different worlds, learning languages and customs that would have been completely foreign to their parents." She activated a holographic display showing a school on New Geneva, where human children played with young Vorthak, Centauri, and even former Hive drones. The image brought tears to the eyes of many representatives who remembered when such cooperation would have been unthinkable. General Kung Wu reported on the final elimination of organized resistance to the cooperative. The last holdout government, the Callous Empire, surrendered this morning after their own people voted them out of power. Empress Kalinda has requested asylum and expressed interest in our rehabilitation programs. This had become the standard pattern. Governments that resisted the cooperative found themselves increasingly isolated as their people saw the prosperity and freedom available to those who joined. Eventually, they either reformed or were replaced by their own citizens. Captain Minho Ryu had spent the year building orbital platforms around every inhabited world in cooperative space. We now have 1,247 operational platforms providing energy, climate control, and defense for member worlds. More importantly, we've trained local teams to maintain and upgrade them without human supervision. This was crucial to humanity's long-term vision. They didn't want to create a galaxy dependent on human technology, but one where every species could contribute to and benefit from shared advancement. Director Sun Ho Nam presented intelligence reports that showed the transformation of galactic civilization from a data perspective. Crime rates are down 89% across cooperative space. Trade disputes have dropped to nearly zero. Resource conflicts have been completely eliminated. We are witnessing the most peaceful period in galactic history. But the most important changes were harder to measure. Hope had replaced despair, cooperation had replaced competition, and the assumption that different species must be enemies had been replaced by the understanding that diversity made everyone stronger. Counselor Jisoo Huang addressed the council about the future. Today we celebrate what we have accomplished together, but this is not an ending. It is a beginning. We have proven that galactic civilization can exist without empire, without oppression, without scarcity. Now we must decide what to do with this achievement. She outlined humanity's proposal for the next phase of galactic development. Instead of simply maintaining peace and prosperity, the cooperative would begin pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Joint research projects that combined the knowledge of hundreds of species, exploration missions to other galaxies, and experiments with technologies that could reshape reality itself. Admiral Park stood to address the Council about humanity's role in this new galaxy. 1 year ago, my species emerged from 3 centuries of hiding. We revealed technology and capabilities that shocked the galaxy. But our greatest achievement was not what we built, it was what we learned. She paused, looking around at the thousands of representatives from species that had once been strangers or enemies. We learned that power without wisdom leads to tyranny. We learned that technology without compassion creates suffering. We learned that no single species, no matter how advanced, can reach its full potential alone. The hall erupted in applause as beings from across the galaxy recognized the truth of her words. Dr. Yu made the final presentation, showing images of the new generation that was growing up in cooperative space. Children who had never known war, poverty, or species hatred. Young beings who saw the galaxy not as a collection of competing civilizations, but as a single community working together toward common goals. This is our real achievement, she said. Not the technology or the military victories, but the transformation of how intelligent beings think about themselves and each other. Captain Kim, watching from his ship in orbit, reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. It had started with a simple patrol mission and a refugee convoy, but it had led to the fundamental transformation of galactic civilization. Admiral, his communications officer announced, "We're receiving a priority message from Earth." The message was from President Chen, transmitted to every human vessel simultaneously. To all human forces serving in the Galactic Cooperative, the President said, "You have accomplished something that our species dreamed of for centuries. You have proven that intelligence, compassion, and cooperation can triumph over chaos and suffering. But remember that this is not the end of our mission. It is the beginning of an even greater one." The message continued with humanity's next great challenge. Contact had been established with civilizations in other galaxies, some of which were facing the same problems that had once plagued their own. The techniques and technologies that had saved their galaxy would now be offered to others. As the council session concluded, Diplomat Shin looked out at the representatives returning to their worlds, carrying news of decisions that would affect billions of beings across thousands of star systems. "What are you thinking about?" asked Admiral Park, joining her at the observation window. "I'm thinking about Captain Kim," Shin replied. "A year ago, he was a simple patrol officer who thought his biggest challenge was dealing with refugees. Now he commands a fleet that includes former enemies working together to protect innocent beings across the galaxy. That's the real miracle." Engineer Do-Hyun Kang watched from the observation deck of his construction ship as the dead world of Kaleth Prime slowly came back to life. 6 months ago, this planet had been a wasteland, its atmosphere poisoned and its surface scarred by industrial disasters. Today, human terraforming technology was turning it into a garden world that could support millions of beings. "Status report," he asked his team. "Atmospheric processors are working at 120% efficiency," reported his assistant. "Ocean seeding is complete, and we're seeing the first weather patterns forming. Plant growth is ahead of schedule by 3 weeks." Below them, massive machines worked across the planet's surface. But these were not the crude industrial devices that had destroyed Kaleth Prime originally. Human technology worked with nature instead of against it, healing the world rather than scarring it further. Counselor Jisoo Hwang arrived at the Kepler station, which had become the first major test of humanity's reconstruction efforts. The station had been a battleground during the Empire's collapse, fought over by 6 different factions until it was finally abandoned as too damaged to be worth holding. Now it bustled with activity as humans worked alongside representatives from dozens of species to rebuild not just the physical structures, but the social systems that made civilization possible. "Counselor," greeted Station Administrator Yuki Sato, a human woman who had volunteered to oversee the project. "Welcome to what we hope will be the model for galactic reconstruction." As they walked through the station, Huang saw something remarkable. Humans and aliens worked side by side, not as masters and servants but as equals cooperating on a shared project. Species that had been enemies for generations were learning to work together under human guidance. "How do you manage the conflicts?" Huang asked. "Some of these species have been at war for centuries." "We found that most conflicts disappear when scarcity disappears," Sato explained. "When everyone has enough food, shelter, and opportunity, there's less reason to fight over resources." Admiral Sungjin commanded the reconstruction fleet from his flagship, the New Dawn. Around him, hundreds of human vessels worked on projects across a dozen star systems. Each ship was equipped with technology that could rebuild entire civilizations, but the real challenge was not technical. It was social. "Admiral," reported Captain Ryu from his orbital platform construction ship, "the Thalas system is requesting permission to join the cooperative. They've completed our requirements for species equality and resource sharing." "Approved," O replied. "Send them a full technology package and assign a cultural integration team." The requirements for joining the Galactic Cooperative were simple, but non-negotiable. No slavery, no genocide, no aggressive expansion, and a commitment to treating all sapient beings with dignity. Species that met these standards received access to human technology that could transform their civilizations overnight. Dr. Nari Yu ran the cultural integration programs that helped different species learn to work together. Her teams included anthropologists, psychologists, and diplomats who had studied alien cultures for decades. "The key," she explained to a group of new volunteers, "is to understand that every species has something valuable to contribute. Humans have advanced technology and organizational skills, but we can learn from alien perspectives on art, philosophy, and social organization." Her programs brought together beings from different worlds to work on joint projects. A Centauri artist might collaborate with a human engineer to design a new type of habitat. A Vorthak former soldier might work with a human teacher to develop educational programs for war refugees. General Kyung-woo oversaw the most sensitive part of the reconstruction effort, dealing with the governments and organizations that had chosen to resist humanity's offer of cooperation. "The Kalos Empire is still refusing all contact," he reported to Admiral O. "They've threatened to destroy any human ships that enter their territory." "What about their people?" O asked. "That's the interesting part. We're receiving thousands of asylum requests from Kalos citizens. They want to join the cooperative, but their government won't let them leave. This had become a pattern across the galaxy. Oppressive governments wanted to maintain their power, but their people could see the prosperity and freedom that came with joining the human-led cooperative. Captain Minho Ryu's orbital platforms had become one of humanity's most important tools for reconstruction. Each platform could provide a planet with unlimited clean energy, climate control, and resource processing capabilities. They turned even the most marginal worlds into places where billions could live comfortably. The beautiful thing about the platforms, Ryu explained to a group of alien engineers, is that they make planetary governments almost irrelevant. When every inhabited world can be completely self-sufficient, there's no need for empires or conquest. But the platforms also carried defensive systems that could protect entire star systems from attack. This gave the cooperative the ability to guarantee the safety of any world that joined them, regardless of external threats. Engineer Kang completed his work on Kaleth Prime and moved on to his next project, the restoration of the imperial capital, Coronax Prime. This world had been the center of galactic civilization for 1,000 years before being destroyed in the final battle of the Imperial Civil War. "Sir," his survey team reported, "the damage is more extensive than we thought. The planetary core was destabilized by the nuclear bombardment. The whole world could collapse within a few years." Kang studied the data and smiled. "Then we'll give it a new core. Prepare the quantum stabilizers." What he was proposing had never been attempted before, using human technology to literally rebuild a planet from the core outward. But if it worked, it would demonstrate that there was no limit to what cooperation and advanced technology could accomplish together. Dr. Yu's cultural programs began to show remarkable results as different species learned to understand each other. On New Singapore Station, a former Vorthak warrior named Thok worked with a human child named Lisa to design a memorial for the victims of his people's aggression. "I used to think strength meant making others fear you," Thok explained through a translator. "Now I understand that real strength means making others feel safe." Across the galaxy, similar transformations were taking place. Species that had been defined by their conflicts with others were learning new ways to think about themselves and their place in the universe. Counselor Huang traveled from world to world, documenting the changes that were taking place. What she found amazed her. In system after system, the same pattern repeated itself. Scarcity was replaced by abundance, fear was replaced by hope, and conflict was replaced by cooperation. The most remarkable thing, she wrote in her reports, is how quickly it happens. Within months of joining the cooperative, worlds that had been torn apart by war are becoming centers of art, learning, and innovation. But not everyone was happy with the changes. On Vorthak Prime, former war chief Throtak met secretly with other military leaders who had been displaced by the new order. "The humans have made our people soft," he complained. "They no longer respect strength or honor. They spend their time on art and philosophy instead of preparing for war." "Perhaps," replied his former aide, "that is because there is no longer any need for war. Our people are healthier, better fed, and happier than they have ever been." Throtak felt his old anger rising. Happiness is not the purpose of existence. Conquest is. Glory is. The humans have stolen our destiny. But when he tried to organize resistance to human influence, he found that few Vorthak were interested. The young ones especially seemed to prefer their new lives to the endless warfare that had defined their species for centuries. Admiral O monitored the resistance movements that were forming across the galaxy. Most were led by former military officers and political leaders who had lost power when their worlds joined the cooperative. "The pattern is consistent," reported Director. Now, each resistance group follows the same cycle. They start with angry rhetoric about human domination, then attempt to organize military resistance, then gradually lose support as their people see the benefits of cooperation. Any groups we need to worry about? The Hive Collective is still a concern. They've completely isolated themselves from the rest of the galaxy. We don't know what they're planning, but they have the industrial capacity to build a significant military force. O nodded thoughtfully. The Hive Collective was a group of insect-like species that operated as a single organism across multiple star systems. They had always been suspicious of outsiders, and humanity's rapid expansion had apparently frightened them into complete isolation. Captain Ryu completed another orbital platform installation, this time around the former slave world of bondage. The planet's name would be changed to Freedom, and its population of former slaves would become full citizens of the cooperative. "It's remarkable," observed the planet's new administrator, a former slave who had been elected by her fellow survivors. "6 months ago, we were property. Today, we have technology that makes us more advanced than the species that enslaved us." This was perhaps humanity's greatest achievement, not just ending slavery where they found it, but helping former slaves build new lives that were better than what their former masters had ever enjoyed. Doctor. Diplomat Hana Shin stepped off the transport shuttle and looked around the neutral space station where the first Galactic Emergency Council meeting in 30 years was about to begin. Representatives from every major surviving government had come to hear what humanity wanted. She was the first official human diplomat the galaxy had ever seen, and the weight of that responsibility felt heavy on her shoulders. Behind her walked a small security detail, but everyone knew that the real protection came from the human fleet that had quietly surrounded the station. "Diplomat Shin," said Ambassador Veltar of the Centauri Alliance, approaching with obvious nervousness, "my government wishes to know if the rumors are true. Does Earth really have 12 supercarriers?" Hana smiled politely. "Ambassador, Earth has many capabilities that have remained hidden until now. Today we will discuss which of those capabilities might be useful for restoring peace to the galaxy." Dr. Sora Im worked in her laboratory aboard the research station hidden in the Veil Nebula. Around her, teams of scientists analyzed technology samples that had been collected from across the galaxy over the past 3 centuries. "Admiral Yoon," she reported via secure communication, "our analysis is complete. Every major military technology in use today is based on systems that were already obsolete when we started our research program. We are literally centuries ahead of the rest of the galaxy." The evidence was overwhelming. While the galaxy had fought over the scraps of Imperial technology, humans had been quietly developing entirely new approaches to physics, engineering, and computation. Faster-than-light communication, matter conversion, artificial gravity, and even experimental time manipulation were all standard human technologies. Captain Yuna Song commanded one of 50 stealth reconnaissance fleets that were now revealing themselves across the galaxy. Her ships appeared simultaneously in hundreds of star systems, offering aid to struggling colonies and demonstrating that Earth's reach extended far beyond what anyone had imagined. "Colony leader Thex," she said to the desperate administrator, "of a mining world that had been cut off from trade for 5 years. We can provide immediate relief supplies and permanent infrastructure improvements. All we ask in return is that you treat all species fairly and work toward peaceful solutions to your problems." The mining world had been slowly dying as its people fought over dwindling resources. Within hours of the human arrival, automated systems were producing everything the colony needed. Food, medicine, building materials, and advanced manufacturing equipment appeared as if by magic. General Kyung-woo monitored the larger picture from his command center. Across the galaxy, human forces were making similar offers to thousands of worlds. Not conquest, not demands for tribute or submission, just help with the promise that it would continue as long as the recipients behaved decently toward their neighbors. "Admiral," he reported to Yoon, "we're getting positive responses from 78% of the colonies we've contacted. Most of them are desperate enough to accept help from anyone. The remaining 22% are suspicious of our motives." "What about the major powers?" Yoon asked. "That's where things get interesting. The Stellar Confederation wants a formal alliance. The Rimward Alliance is demanding to know our military capabilities before they'll negotiate. The Trade Syndicate wants to establish commercial relationships. Engineer Do-Yun Kang was overseeing the deployment of infrastructure systems across dozens of worlds simultaneously. His automated construction fleets could terraform dead worlds in months, build orbital platforms around any planet, and establish manufacturing capabilities that made scarcity itself obsolete. The key, he explained to a group of alien engineers who were trying to understand human technology, is not to think bigger, but to think differently. Instead of mining asteroids, we convert matter at the molecular level. Instead of building massive factories, we use programmable materials that can reconfigure themselves as needed. Back on the neutral station, diplomat Hana Shin addressed the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. For 300 years, she began, humanity has watched the galaxy tear itself apart. We have seen species enslaved, worlds destroyed, and countless billions killed in wars over resources that don't need to be scarce. She activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Red zones indicated conflict areas, yellow showed regions under severe stress, and the few green areas represented stable territories. What you see here is a civilization in collapse. The old empire maintained peace through force and fear. When it fell, nothing was left to prevent chaos from consuming everything. A representative from the Vorthak successor state stood up angrily. Are you saying you could have prevented this suffering? That you chose to let billions die while you hid? Hana's expression became sad. Yes, we could have intervened earlier, but we learned from watching the empire that power without wisdom leads to tyranny. We needed time to develop not just the technology to save the galaxy, but the understanding of how to use that technology responsibly. She changed the display to show human capabilities. The representatives gasped as they saw the true extent of Earth's hidden empire. Hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships, industrial capacity that dwarfed the combined output of all other civilizations. This is what we built while you fought over imperial ruins. Not an empire of conquest, but a system designed to support and uplift other species. Captain Isil Bey's special operations teams had spent the past week conducting the most audacious intelligence operation in galactic history. Using their phase technology, they had infiltrated every major government and military installation, gathering complete information about everyone's capabilities and plans. Admiral, she reported, we now have complete intelligence on all major powers. Most of them are in worse shape than they want to admit. The Confederation is facing internal rebellion, the Alliance is nearly bankrupt, and the Trade Syndicate is being infiltrated by criminal organizations. Director Sun Ho Nam had been coordinating Earth's information campaign. For the first time in centuries, human news broadcasts were reaching every inhabited world in the galaxy. The key, he explained to his team, is not to overwhelm them with our superiority, but to show them what cooperation can accomplish. Every story should focus on problems being solved, people being helped, and hope being restored. The Human News Network showed human medical teams curing diseases that had plagued alien species for generations. They showed human engineers turning wasteland planets into garden worlds. They showed human teachers sharing knowledge that could revolutionize entire civilizations. But most importantly, they showed human diplomats working with local leaders to solve problems through cooperation instead of force. Admiral Tae Hyun Yoon received reports from across human space as Operation Lighthouse entered its most critical phase. The galaxy now knew that humanity possessed overwhelming military and technological superiority. The question was what they would do with that knowledge. Admiral, reported his intelligence officer, we're detecting military buildups in 17 systems. Some governments are preparing for war. Others are trying to form defensive alliances. Any direct threats? The Kalos Empire has issued a formal declaration that they will not submit to human dominance. The Hive Collective has gone completely silent, which usually means they're planning something. And there are unconfirmed reports of several minor powers attempting to acquire weapons of mass destruction. Yoon considered the situation carefully. This was the moment that would determine whether humanity's emergence would bring peace or trigger an even greater war. Send a message to all governments, he ordered. Any attempt to develop or deploy weapons of mass destruction will result in immediate intervention. Any attack on human forces or human-protected worlds will be met with overwhelming response. But any government that chooses cooperation over conflict will find humanity to be the most generous and helpful ally they could imagine. Dr. Im completed her analysis of galactic military capabilities and sent her report to the highest levels of human command. The conclusion is clear, she wrote. No combination of alien forces could challenge human military power. We have absolute superiority in every category that matters. The real question is not whether we can enforce peace, but whether we can do so without becoming the very thing we sought to prevent, a tyrannical empire that rules through fear. As the Galactic Emergency Council meeting continued, Diplomat Shin revealed the final part of humanity's plan. We are not here to replace the old empire with a human one, she announced. We are here to offer something entirely new, a cooperative civilization based on mutual aid and shared advancement, rather than dominance and exploitation. She outlined humanity's proposal, the Galactic Cooperative. Instead of a hierarchical empire ruled from a single world, it would be a network of autonomous systems united by common technology and shared values. Earth would provide the technology and security that made peace possible, but each world would govern itself according to its own culture and needs. The choice, she concluded, is simple. Continue fighting over the ruins of the old galaxy, or work with us to build something better. Around the galaxy, governments and peoples struggled with the implications of humanity's offer. Some saw opportunity, others saw. Commander Hieri Choi had been waiting for this moment her entire life. She sat in the cockpit of her fighter, watching the tactical display show thousands of Vorthak ships approaching the Sol system. The alien fleet was massive, far larger than the force that had been defeated at the refugee convoy. All pilots, came Admiral Taehyun Yoon's voice over the comm. Prepare for full deployment. Today we show the galaxy what humanity has been building for 3 centuries. Choi looked around her fighter squadron. Each pilot wore a helmet connected to systems that could process information faster than any alien brain. Their fighters were sleek white craft that looked more like works of art than weapons of war. Dragon Squadron ready for launch, Choi reported. Phoenix Squadron ready, came another voice. Tiger Squadron ready. The reports continued. Hundreds of squadrons, thousands of fighters, all waiting for the order to launch. The Vorthak hegemon himself, Warlord Karvak, commanded this fleet. He had brought every available ship to destroy the upstart humans who had dared to humiliate his forces. Over 3,000 vessels now approached Earth's solar system. Humans, Karvak broadcast as his fleet reached the edge of the system, you have interfered with the hegemony for the last time. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. The response came from Admiral Yoon. Warlord, this is your only warning. Turn your fleet around and leave this system immediately. You are not welcome here. Karvak laughed, a harsh sound that echoed across his bridge. Look around you, human. I have brought an armada. Your pathetic home system cannot possibly stand against such force. You are correct about one thing, Warlord. You are looking at an armada. Unfortunately for you, it is ours, not yours. Space around the Vorthak fleet began to change. What had seemed like empty vacuums suddenly filled with human vessels, not dozens, like at the refugee convoy, but thousands. Ships of every size and configuration appeared from stealth fields and quantum cloaking systems, but that was only the beginning. Captain Minho Ryu watched from his command center on Luna Station as Earth's true defenses revealed themselves. The moon itself began to transform, its surface opening to reveal massive weapon emplacements and shield generators. What the galaxy had thought was a simple natural satellite was actually a fortress that had been under construction for 200 years. Orbital defense grid online, Ryu reported. All stations report ready. Around Earth, structures that had been disguised as space junk and asteroids began to unfold into defensive platforms. The entire solar system was revealed to be a military installation on a scale that dwarfed anything the old Galactic Empire had ever attempted. Dr. Sora Im monitored the situation from her research station hidden in the asteroid belt. For 50 years she had been studying alien technology, learning the weaknesses of every major species in the galaxy. Today, that knowledge would be put to use. Admiral Yoon, she reported, I'm reading Vorthak shield frequencies and weapon signatures. Their technology is based on systems stolen from 17 different species. I can provide countermeasures for all of it. General Kyung-woo commanded the ground forces that most people didn't even know existed. Hidden bases on dozens of planets throughout the galaxy had been quietly watching and waiting for this day. "Admiral," he reported from his command bunker deep beneath Earth's surface, "our forces are in position throughout Vorthak territory. We have been monitoring their worlds for decades. If this turns into a larger conflict, we are ready." "Warlord." Karvak stared at his tactical display in growing horror. What had started as a simple punitive expedition against a minor species had become a nightmare. The humans weren't just defending their home system. They had turned the entire Sol system into the most heavily fortified location in galactic history. "How many ships do they have?" he asked his sensor officer. I cannot get an accurate count, Warlord. Our sensors are being jammed, but I estimate at least 10,000 vessels of various classes." 10,000? Karvak felt his confidence beginning to crack. "That's impossible. No species has that many ships." "Warlord," his communications officer interrupted. "We're receiving detailed scans of our entire fleet. The humans know everything about our ships. Crew numbers, weapon loadouts, shield strengths, even our personal files." Admiral Yoon's voice filled the Vorthak command ship. "Warlord Karvak, we know you have 3,247 vessels carrying approximately 15 million Vorthak soldiers and support personnel. We also know that 847 of your ships contain slave crews from conquered species. Those vessels will be liberated first." Captain Isol Bai led the special operations forces that had been secretly inserted throughout the Vorthak fleet during their approach. Using technology that could phase through solid matter, her teams had been moving through alien ships for hours, mapping layouts and identifying targets. "Admiral," she reported from inside a Vorthak battleship, "all teams are in position. We can disable their entire fleet from within on your command." Commander Choi felt her fighter shake as the launch bay of the Terra's shield opened. Around her, thousands of other fighters began to pour into space like a swarm of angry insects. "Dragon Squadron, follow my lead," she ordered, accelerating toward the Vorthak fleet. The alien ships opened fire, filling space with energy beams and projectiles. But the human fighters moved like nothing the Vorthak had ever seen. They flowed through the weapons fire like water, their shields adapting to every attack. "Impossible," whispered a Vorthak gunner. "Nothing moves that fast." The human fighters reached the Vorthak fleet and began their work. But instead of destroying the alien ships, they used precision weapons to disable specific systems. Engines went offline, weapons stopped firing, and shields collapsed, all without harming the crews inside. Dr. Im watched her countermeasures work perfectly. Every Vorthak weapon system had been analyzed and defeated before the battle even began. Their most advanced battleships were being neutralized by human technology that treated them like primitive toys. "Admiral," she reported, "Vorthak military doctrine is based on overwhelming firepower and intimidation. They have no experience fighting an opponent with superior technology. They don't know how to adapt." Warlord Karvak watched his mighty armada being systematically disabled around him. Ship after ship went dark as human forces used weapons and tactics he couldn't understand. "All vessels," he broadcast desperately, "retreat to hyperspace, immediate withdrawal." But when his fleet tried to jump away, nothing happened. The human ships were somehow preventing them from entering hyperspace. "This is Captain Bay," came a voice from inside his own ship. "Warlord, your fleet is now completely disabled. Any attempt to harm your crews or damage your vessels will be prevented. Please prepare to be boarded." Karvak spun around to see a human woman standing on his bridge. She had appeared from nowhere, wearing armor that seemed to bend light around it. "How did you get here?" he demanded. "The same way we've been watching your species for 100 years, Bay replied calmly. "The Vorthak hegemony has been under observation since you first left your home system. We know everything about you." Around the solar system, the Vorthak fleet hung motionless in space. Not a single human ship had been damaged. Not a single human had been killed. In less than an hour, humanity had defeated the largest military force assembled since the fall of the Galactic Empire. Admiral Yoon broadcast to the galaxy from his flagship. To all civilizations currently monitoring this situation, this is what happens when aggressor species threaten innocent beings under human protection. We do not seek conquest or domination. We seek only peace and the protection of those who cannot protect themselves. General Wu began coordinating the processing of Vorthak prisoners. Admiral, what do we do with 15 million enemy soldiers? We show them what civilized behavior looks like, Yun replied. Feed them, treat their injured, and teach them that there are alternatives to conquest and slavery. Director Sunho Nam monitored reactions from across the galaxy as news of the battle spread. Every major government, every military force, every intelligence service was trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Admiral, he reported, we're receiving communication requests from 847 different governments and organizations. Everyone wants to know what humanity's intentions are. Captain Ji-Ho Kim, still aboard the Aegis Dawn near the refugee convoy, watched the aftermath of the battle with amazement. The Vorthak fleet that had seemed so terrifying was now just another humanitarian crisis for Earth to solve. Captain, Admiral Park's voice came over his communicator. Prepare for Phase 2 of Operation Lighthouse. Now that the galaxy knows we exist, it's time to show them what we intend to do with our power. Across human space, hidden bases and research, stations began to reveal themselves. Hundreds of worlds that the galaxy thought were empty turned out to be thriving human colonies. Automated factories that had been producing ships and equipment for centuries stepped up their production. The age of human secrecy was over. The galaxy was about to learn that the quiet species from the little blue planet had spent 3 centuries, building not just the most powerful military force in history, but also the wisdom to use that power for something greater than conquest. The real war was not against the Vorthak or any other aggressive species. The real war was against chaos, suffering, and the Admiral Minji Park stood in the command center deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. Around her, hundreds of officers worked at stations that controlled Earth's greatest secret. For 3 centuries, this facility had coordinated humanity's hidden expansion across the galaxy. Admiral, said Captain Yuna Song, walking up with a datapad in her hands, our stealth scouts report that the Vorthak fleet will reach Captain Kim's position in 36 hours. 43 battleships and over 200 support vessels. Park nodded calmly. She had been preparing for this moment for 20 years. And our forces? The Terra's shield is in position along with Battle Group 7 and 12. Dr. Wu Jin Lee's medical teams are ready for refugee processing. Engineer Do Yun Kang confirms all systems are operating at full capacity. Park looked at the massive display screen showing the tactical situation. The Vorthak fleet was a red swarm moving toward Captain Kim's small blue dot. But what the Vorthak didn't know was that they were flying into a trap that had been set long ago. Give me a connection to the Earth Council, Park ordered. The screen changed to show 12 faces, the leaders of Earth's government. President Chen spoke first. Admiral Park, are you certain this is the right time? Mr. President, we have been certain for 50 years. The galaxy is bleeding to death while we hide in the shadows. If we wait any longer, there will be nothing left to save. Another council member leaned forward. The risks are enormous. Once we reveal ourselves, there will be no going back. The risks of doing nothing are greater, Park replied. The Vorthak alone have killed over 2 billion beings in the past decade. The Stellar Confederation is collapsing into civil war. The Rimward Alliance is fracturing. Every day we delay, more innocents die. The council voted. It was close, but Park side won. Operation Lighthouse is approved, President Chen announced. Phase 1 begins immediately. Park turned to her staff. Send the activation codes to all units. After today, the galaxy will never be the same. Captain Yuna Song had been commanding stealth ships for 15 years, but she had never been part of something this big. Her reconnaissance fleet had spent months moving into position around the refugee convoy, completely invisible to both the refugees and the approaching Vorthak. Captain, her sensor officer reported, the Terra's shield is beginning decloak sequence. Song looked at her main display and felt her breath catch. Even though she had seen it before, the sight of humanity's first supercarrier still amazed her. It was 3 kilometers long, its hull covered in patterns that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Docking bays lined its sides, each one large enough to hold a traditional battleship. Signal from Admiral Park, her communications officer, announced. All units prepare for full revelation. Song activated her ship's external cameras and broadcast the signal that would change everything. Across the galaxy, hidden human observation posts began transmitting live footage to every major news network and government center. Dr. Woo-Jin Lee watched from the medical bay of the Terra's shield as space around the refugee convoy began to shimmer and bend. One by one, human vessels appeared from nowhere, their cloaking fields dropping away to reveal the most advanced fleet ever assembled. The refugees reacted with shock and fear as ships appeared all around them. These vessels were like nothing they had ever seen. Their hulls were smooth and white with no visible weapons or rough surfaces. They moved with impossible grace, sliding through space as if it were water rather than vacuum. "This is Admiral Minji Park of the Earth Defense Force," came a broadcast on all frequencies. "To the refugee convoy, you are now under the protection of humanity. To any hostile forces approaching this position, you will withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Lee activated his medical sensors and began scanning the refugee ships. What he found made him angry. These people were not just hungry and scared. They were dying. Radiation exposure, disease, malnutrition, and injuries that should have been easily treatable had been left to fester for months. "Admiral," he reported, "these people need immediate medical attention. Permission to begin emergency treatment?" "Granted, doctor. Show them what human medicine can do." Medical shuttles launched from the Terra's shield, each one carrying technology that seemed like magic to the refugees. Nanobots that could repair genetic damage, healing chambers that could regrow lost limbs, medicines that could cure diseases the refugees had never heard of. Within hours, dying refugees were walking around their ships healthy and strong. Children who had been weak and sick were playing again. Elderly aliens who had been preparing to die were talking about their plans for the future. Engineer Do-Hyun Kang supervised the deployment of supply drones from his position in the Terra's Shield's engineering section. Each drone carried enough food, water, and basic supplies to support 1,000 people for a month. But more importantly, they carried fabrication units that could produce whatever the refugees needed from raw materials. "Engineering to bridge," Kang reported. "Refugee vessels are now fully supplied. Fabrication units are online and teaching refugee engineers how to use them." The fabrication units were a revelation to the refugees. They could take simple raw materials like metal ore or organic waste and transform them into anything needed. Food, medicine, building materials, even complex electronics. "How is this possible?" asked one refugee engineer, staring at a unit that had just produced a week's worth of food from recycled waste products. "Human technology," Kang explained, through a translator. "We have learned to manipulate matter at the molecular level." But the real shock came when Director Sunho Nam's intelligence network began to reveal itself. For centuries, humans had been quietly observing every major civilization in the galaxy. They had listening posts in every important system, agents in every government, and sensors watching every military base. "Admiral," Nam reported from his command center on Earth, "the Vorthak fleet has just received new orders. They are accelerating their approach and requesting reinforcements. It appears our revelation has made them angry." Park smiled coldly. "Let them come. It's time the galaxy saw what happens when someone threatens innocent beings while humanity is watching." The Vorthak fleet commander, War Chief Throtak, stared at the display showing the human ships. He had never seen anything like them. His sensors could barely detect them even when they were clearly visible. Their energy signatures made no sense, and his weapons targeting systems couldn't get a solid lock. "Human vessels," he broadcast on an open frequency. "You are interfering with hegemony business. Withdraw immediately or be destroyed." The response came from Admiral Park herself. "War Chief, you are the one who will withdraw. The beings under our protection are no longer your concern." Throtak felt his anger rising. No one spoke to a Vorthak war chief that way. "You are outnumbered 40-1 humans. Your small fleet cannot stand against the might of the hegemony." "Our fleet is not small, War Chief. You simply cannot see most of it." As if to prove her point, space around the Vorthak fleet began to shimmer and distort. More human ships appeared, dozens of them, each one larger and more advanced than anything in Throtok's fleet. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was that the human ships were not just around the refugee convoy. They were everywhere. Behind the Vorthak fleet, beside it, above it, below it, the humans had surrounded his entire armada without him noticing. "This is impossible," Throtok whispered. "Our sensors are the best in the galaxy." His sensor officer looked terrified. "War Chief, I'm reading energy signatures unlike anything in our database. These ships are using technology that we don't understand." Captain Ji-Ho Kim watched from the Aegis Dawn as the situation unfolded around him. His small patrol vessel was now part of the most important fleet action in galactic history. The Terra's shield hung in space near the refugee convoy like a silver moon, beautiful and terrible. "Captain Kim," Admiral Park's voice came over his communicator. "You are about to witness the end of an era. Watch carefully." The Vorthak fleet began to move into attack formation, their weapons charging and shields activating. They still believed they could win through superior numbers and firepower. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "All human vessels," Admiral Park announced, "demonstrate our defensive capabilities." The Vorthak opened fire first. Thousands of energy beams and projectiles flew toward the human ships, but instead of impacting and exploding, the attacks simply disappeared. The human vessels seemed to absorb the energy, their shields rippling, with patterns of light that were beautiful to watch. "Now," Park said quietly, "show them our offensive capabilities." What happened next would be talked about across the galaxy for generations. The human ships didn't fire traditional weapons. Instead, beams of pure light reached out and touched each Vorthak vessel. The alien ships simply stopped working. Their engines went dead, their weapons powered down, their shields collapsed. In 30 seconds, the entire Vorthak fleet had been disabled without a single vessel being destroyed or a single being killed. War. Chief Throtok found himself sitting in a dead ship, his crew staring at controls that no longer responded. Around him, 43 battleships and 200 support vessels drifted helplessly in space. "This is Admiral Park," came a broadcast.
"Vorthak forces, you have been neutralized."
Captain Ji-Ho Kim stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the dark space ahead. His vessel, the Aegis Dawn, was not very big compared to the old Imperial warships he had seen in history books. But those giant ships were gone now. The Galactic Empire had broken apart 30 years ago, and now the galaxy was full of small groups fighting each other. Ji-Ho had been patrolling the outer edges of human space for 3 months. Earth wanted to know what was happening in the galaxy, but they also wanted to stay hidden. For 300 years, humans had pretended to be weak and unimportant. Other alien races thought Earth was just a small backward planet with simple technology. "Captain," said his communications officer, "we're getting a signal. It's very weak." "Put it on the main screen," Ji-Ho ordered. The image that appeared made Ji-Ho's heart sink. Hundreds of ships filled his view, but these were not warships. They were refugee vessels, old and damaged, barely holding together. Most of them were alien ships that Ji-Ho had never seen before. "This is Captain Ji-Ho Kim of the Earth vessel Aegis Dawn," he said into his communicator. "Do you need help?" "Oh," voice answered, speaking in broken universal language. "Please help us. We are running from the Vorthak. They destroyed our worlds. Many are dead." Ji-Ho knew about the Vorthak hegemony. They were one of the groups that had taken control of Imperial territory after the Empire fell. The report said they were aggressive and cruel to other species. "How many ships do you have?" Ji-Ho asked. 800 vessels, 2 million people. We have been traveling for 4 months. Our food is almost gone." Ji-Ho felt sick. His ship could only help a few hundred people at most, but he had to do something. "We will do what we can," he said. "Prepare to receive supplies." As his crew began preparing food packages and medical supplies, Ji-Ho called Admiral Minji Park on Earth. The communication would take several minutes to reach Earth because of the distance. While he waited, Ji-Ho listened to more stories from the refugees. They came from 12 different worlds that the Vorthak had attacked. The alien soldiers had demanded that all non-Vorthak species become slaves or die. Most had chosen to run. Admiral Park's face appeared on Jiho's private screen. She was an older woman with gray hair and serious eyes. "Admiral," Jiho said, "we have a situation here." He explained about the refugees. Admiral Park listened without speaking. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. "Captain," she finally said, "how much do these refugees know about human technology?" "Very little, I think. They seem surprised that our ship is so clean and our supplies are so good." "Why?" Admiral Park looked worried. "Some of them may have seen things, human ships that they shouldn't have seen." Jiho felt confused. "What do you mean?" "Captain, I need you to question the refugees carefully. Ask them exactly what they saw when they escaped from Vorthak space. This is very important." Over the next few hours, Jiho and his crew interviewed dozens of refugees. Most of their stories were similar. The Vorthak had attacked suddenly with overwhelming force, but 3 refugees told different stories. An alien with blue skin and 4 arms spoke quietly to Jiho. "When we were escaping from Kepler Station, we saw something impossible. A human ship appeared from nowhere. It was huge, bigger than any Vorthak battleship. It destroyed 6 Vorthak vessels in seconds, then disappeared again." Another refugee, this one with gray skin and large eyes, nodded. "We saw this too. Human fighters that moved faster than anything we had ever seen. They saved a transport full of children, then vanished." The third refugee was more excited. "The human weapons were like nothing in the galaxy. They cut through Vorthak shields like they were made of air. And their ship, it was beautiful, all white and gold, with lines that seemed to flow like water." Jiho tried to stay calm, but his heart was beating fast. He had heard rumors about secret human projects, but he had never believed them. That night, Jiho received another call from Admiral Park. This time, she was not alone. A man in a dark uniform stood behind her. "Captain Kim," Admiral Park said, "I want you to meet Director Sunho Nam. He has some questions for you." Director Nam stepped forward. He was younger than the Admiral, with sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. "Captain," Nam said, "what exactly did the refugees tell you about human ships?" Jiho repeated the stories he had heard. Director Nam listened carefully, sometimes asking for more details. "Captain," Nam said when Jiho finished, "you are about to become part of something much bigger than a simple patrol mission. Can you be trusted with secrets that could change the galaxy?" Jiho thought about his family on Earth, about his duty as an officer, about the suffering he had seen in the refugee convoy. "Yes, sir," he said. Director Nam smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Captain, for 300 years, Earth has been hiding. We let the galaxy think we were weak and primitive, but we have been watching, learning, and building." "Building what?" "The most advanced fleet in galactic history. Ships that make Imperial dreadnoughts look like toys. Technology that could reshape civilization itself." Jiho felt like the world was spinning around him. "Why are you telling me this?" Admiral Park spoke up. "Because the time for hiding is almost over. The galaxy is destroying itself. If we don't act soon, billions will die." Director Nam pulled up a holographic display. It showed star maps with thousands of red dots. "Each red dot is a system in crisis," he said. "War, famine, plague, genocide. The old empire kept peace for 1,000 years. Now that it's gone, chaos is spreading everywhere." "But why now?" Jiho asked. "Why reveal ourselves now?" "Because," Admiral Park said, "we finally have the power to fix things. And more importantly, we have learned how to use that power responsibly." Over the next hour, they told Jiho about Operation Lighthouse. It was a plan to slowly reveal Earth's true capabilities to the galaxy. The first phase would be humanitarian, missions like helping the refugee convoy. Later phases would involve direct military action against the worst aggressors. "Your job," Director Nam said, "is to be our first public face. You will help these refugees, and in doing so, you will start showing the galaxy what humanity can really do." "What about the Vorthak?" Jiho asked. They won't like us interfering. Admiral Park's expression became hard. The Vorthak hegemony has enslaved 17 species and destroyed 43 worlds in the past 5 years. They are a threat to all civilized life. We have been watching them, Director Nam added. Their fleet is moving toward this sector. They probably know about the refugee convoy and plan to finish what they started. Jiho felt cold. How long do we have? 3 days, maybe 4. Jiho looked at his small patrol ship on the display, then at the hundreds of refugee vessels. We can't fight a Vorthak battle fleet. Director Nam smiled again, and this time it was a real smile. You won't be fighting alone, Captain. Help is coming. What kind of help? The kind that will shock the galaxy, Admiral Park said. Captain, prepare your crew for the most important mission in human history, and prepare yourself to see things that you never imagined possible. As the communication ended, Jiho sat alone, on his bridge looking out at the refugee convoy. In 3 days, everything would change. The galaxy would learn that humanity was not the weak, primitive species they thought. But Jiho wondered if the galaxy was ready for that truth. Outside, his ship, the refugees, slept in their crowded vessels, dreaming of safety. They had no idea that they were about to witness the moment when Earth stepped out of the shadows and into galactic history. The Vorthak fleet was coming, but Jiho was no longer afraid. For the first time in his life, he understood what it truly meant to be human in a galaxy full of wonders and terrors. Soon, everyone else would understand too.